What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So, bit of a technical video today because there's a specific thing that happened in the Merab fight with Peter Yan that I want to address because I've seen it happen in other fights and it's a common occurrence, and I've seen people make these like wild overcorrections to deal with it, when in reality the answer is very simple, and that is what to do when somebody jabs with you. Because a thing that kept happening throughout the fight is that Merab was trying to get in and start combinations. He was leading with the jab, and it was for the purposes of starting some snowballing, swarming combination. You know, he actually caught Yan with a really good right hand in the first round, but Yan was shutting it down because he was intercepting Merab's jab with the jab of his own. And that can happen in a myriad of ways. It can happen because they do like a dipping jab where you just throw a normal jab, but they throw a jab and like dip their head down so that your jab sails past their face, but you eat their jab. And that's what Juliana Pena was doing against Amanda Nunes in their first fight. It can be done, you know, the kind of least optimal way for them is they just jab when you jab and you both boom, get your heads knocked back, you know, by each other's jabs. They can, you know, maybe they've got a longer reach, so if you both throw at the same time, they get you, but you don't get them. Maybe you're telegraphing in some way, so they have enough time to kind of see it coming, hit you, and like slip out before you hit them, like whatever happens. But no matter how it's happening, there's an easy kind of like one-size-fits-all solution to at least keep you from getting jabbed in the face every time you step in. Because people, you know, Merab was trying to navigate around that. You could tell it was disrupting him. You could tell it was keeping him from getting his combos going, which made his wrestling less offensive, you know, or less offensively potent because the mix up of like when's he coming in with what, and the classic wrestlers using their strikes to set up their wrestling and using their wrestling to set up their strikes is less powerful if he's confident he can just cut you off at the jab every time. And like, everyone, all the analysts, all the technical MMA analysts laughed their asses off when Amanda Nunes had the rematch with Pena because her overcorrection to deal with the dipping jab was to just fight southpaw. It's like, you shouldn't have to change your whole fucking stance for an entire 5-round fight to deal with that one move. You know, it worked out, and a lot of this is just like armchair quarterbacking, which I fucking hate. Like, people don't realize that there is a gap between what you know and what you can do. Fighters all know more than they can do. That's how this works. And anyone who's competed or even trained, you know there's a gap between what you know and what you can do in sparring. And there's a gap between what you can do in sparring and what you can do in competition. And even there's a gap between what you can do in kind of general competition, like going to the local jiu-jitsu tournament and competing at the highest level on the biggest stage in front of the biggest audience and with the most on the line, the most pressure. There's a fucking gap. So like, it's easy to say like, oh, I should have just done this. It's like, yeah, he probably knows. His coach probably knows. Everyone knows. Like, you know, it's like, it's not that easy. And so unless you're the man in the arena, like the Teddy Roosevelt speech, unless you're that guy who actually steps in and puts it on the line and applies it yourself, or unless you're a high-level coach actually building the guys who are stepping in and putting it all on the line, your opinion kind of doesn't mean fucking shit. You know, so it's like, yeah, so I'm recognizing that all going into this as I'm about to tell everyone how to deal with this, but I'm just saying, from a technical point of view, from a boxing point of view, there is a simple way to deal with this. And this is what I do anytime I'm sparring and I notice someone's just trying to jab with me. Like, this is my go-to initial thing to deal with that. And it's all with the backhand, because the backhand in boxing, you know, yeah, it's your power hand, but it's also doing most of your defending. Like, the backhand can parry jabs, it can cover to defend against hooks, it can catch uppercuts, and it can catch jabs. So it can parry jabs and it can catch jabs. And when you catch a jab, it's like you take it in the palm. It's like catching a baseball in a glove. And speaking of gloves, it actually kind of only works well if you have gloves on, whether it's boxing gloves or MMA gloves. Actually, you won't be able to see it through the camera, but I have like a permanent little deformed notch in my palm here from doing that bare knuckle with people and catching bare knuckle punches. And if you take the knuckle on the palm, it like can do damage, though it's not a good way to defend punches. But if you have gloves on, it works great. And so what you do, though, is as you jab, if you know that every time I step in the jab, they're going to throw one back at me and I'm going to eat it, or they're going to try to catch me, cut me off and get me first, and so I'll eat it. Literally, all you need to do, and I'll do a little side on, I think, so you see it more easily with the camera, is every time you jab, just do a catch at the exact same time. So you're here, boom. You put the hand out, you put both hands out at the same time. So no matter what, like whether you're throwing a dipping jab, whether they're catching you early, they're jabbing with you, whatever, just fucking throw the back hand to catch. And, worst case scenario, just, neither of you land. Like worst case scenario, you catch their jab and they dip out of the way of yours or something. But at least now you're A, just not taking the damage, and B, it's not as disruptive to your continued offense. Like it's a lot easier to follow up with swarming if you're not if as soon as you step in, boom, your head isn't jolted back by a stiff ass jab. Like and it will be a stiff jab because you're stepping into it. You're covering distance. Like virtually any time you see someone get dropped with a jab, it's because they stepped into it. And it's like, and people will see that happen and they'll be like, oh my God, this guy is so powerful. He knocked him out with a jab, or he dropped him with a jab. It's like, the other guy moved into it. They created a car crash collision, which amplifies the force. That's why it happened. And it can, and other stuff can play in too. Like I actually got dropped with a jab in my second MMA fight, and I was already hurt. I was already exhausted. But not only did I step in, but I did it like very awkwardly, where I like took too big of a step with my lead foot. So like my lead foot wasn't even on the ground yet when I got jabbed. So it's kind of like when Forrest Griffin got dropped by Anderson in one of the many times he got dropped by Anderson. But like, so it's like, yeah, if you're like moving into it and you're on one foot, the fucking guy can just pop, jab you and put you down. Like that can happen. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm going to make more videos about Merab later this week, but that just stood out to me. And I hear the technical guys, covering how Jan was using his jab and everything. But it stood out to me because there is such a simple way to deal with that. And again, it's a one-size-fits-all. Anytime someone's jabbing with you as you step in to jab them, just jab and catch at the same time. Like, and in those conditions, the normal risks that come with catching are just not there. Like you don't, because with any defense, a good fighter will find out what your defensive habits are and then exploit them. So if you constantly parry and catch and shit, and especially if you do anything to slip or whatever to accommodate that, they're going to fake and try to hook you, or they're going to fake and head kick you, or something. Like they're going to do something to come around because now your hand is not here to cover. But if they're jabbing with you, that's just like not a realistic thing that can happen. So it's very low risk. It's very easy. Like technically, it's just insanely easy to do. It's not like learning some fancy new move or anything. And it's just an easy habit to be like, oh, like the first time it happens, the first time you step in and jab and eat a jab simultaneously, just be like, oh, okay, he's doing that. I'm just gonna catch. I'm just gonna catch when he does it. So those are my 2 cents on that.